Hello and welcome to Left Coast Live. It is Tuesday, March 11th. I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, joined as always by Stat Pat, stateless patriot of the Central Valley. We are California lefties talking to you about national politics as well as getting into a little bit more of an existential tone tonight with defined terms in public discourse. But we'll get to that in a minute. Stat Pat, I want to hear how you're doing. We haven't had a chance to talk really in a while, so give me the update on you and what's going on in the world and what are you feeling most strongly about?
Um, well, I mean, there's always something to talk about given, just the flurry of news lately. There's just no end in sight. I guess the thing that prominently comes to mind is this guy from Columbia College that was basically kidnapped by ICE and detained, and it looks like he's going to be deported because I guess he had ties with Hamas or something like that, and they're just making an example out of this guy, um, just to quell some of these protests and whatnot because of all the pro-Palestine and anti-Israel protesting that's been going on in these colleges and whatnot, which is completely understandable given our relationship with Israel and what they've been doing to Gaza, and I mean, anyone with half a brainstem and a soul, for that matter, understands that like this is a one-sided conflict, and like there are obviously nuances there, but um, he's basically testing the waters in terms of going after protesters and making an example of whoever he can. And I guess they happen to find this one guy, this agitator, so to quote Trump directly, to make an example out of him.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised by that. Um, you
Yeah.
know, I actually admitted that I haven't really been in touch with the news outside of really Gavin Newsom hosting Charlie Kirk on his podcast there. There you
Yeah,
go. Now you're better.
yeah. I don't know why I didn't set this mic as the default. Yeah, that particular um, episode was quite interesting. Um, I think, as far as I know, I think that's the only appearance that um, Gavin Newsom has had so far. I think this podcast idea, this show that he's doing, is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I think Charlie Kirk is his first guest.
Yes.
Um, I I didn't really get much out of it at all. I mean, I guess it got a little bit more confrontational, a bit more like of a debate, so to speak. Once it got into like the second half of the show, but I wasn't really impressed with Gavin at all. He came across as like, hey, I'm I run the state of California. It's he came out as like with like a sort of charm when it should have been more of like a confrontation.
Attack. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it should, but it should have been a lot more confrontational.
Well, what's ironic about Gavin is that he kept talking about going on offense.
Yeah,
And there was a prime opportunity right there to go on offense.
he was too like
And he,
conciliatory.
yeah,
Yeah, like was conceding too much to.
he's just preoccupied with getting everyone to like him.
That's the thing,
He thinks likability and electability are the same thing, and he wants to try to be like the peacemaker. I always thought he was going for the traditional like alpha male thing,
right?
which is kind of valuable right now for the left, to be honest.
Sure. Like if he wants to come off as a lot more likable, like the very least he can do is try to make the left like him. Like there's a whole untapped base of voters that aren't Democrat loyalists, but are certainly not going to vote for the Republican Party, and they're just ripe for the plucking. If anything, like, stop trying to get surefire voters that you know are going to vote, and try to get non-voters out, people
New
who
voters,
only,
yeah.
yeah, like, not only new voters, but like people who like will be excited by a Democrat message, because people who vote for a Republican are usually lifelong Republicans. Like, like, sure, you know they're going to vote, but it's like, if you try to be too much like the Republicans, why would they vote for you instead of the real thing? It's just the Overton window just keeps on shifting more and more and more to the right.
Yeah, but the truth is that progressives have never really had power. I mean,
Right.
since
Yeah.
FDR, like
Yeah.
it hasn't really had, we kind of had some domestic policy there with LBJ and Kennedy, but
Yeah.
nothing, nothing like in the tradition of FDR, which is what we need right now, is huge, big time structural change. And I don't see anybody on the neoliberal left trying to make that happen. The establishment left is what we should call it. The
Yeah.
establishment left.
Yeah.
And I
Of
think people are
course.
sick of the establishment. In this
Yeah.
country, we have a predisposition to want something different from the establishment for
Correct.
various reasons. So that is something that I don't see being capitalized on. Someone
No.
coming out and being really anti-establishment. Um, but then again, what the hell do I know?
Right. Yeah. It's really frustrating. This whole strategy of play dead is like beyond pathetic. Like,
Yeah,
just because you have no plan doesn't mean just give up and just sit tight and just wait out power. That's not
right.
how this shit works. Like, you're like, don't fucking lay down and just take it from the Republican Party. Come up with a strategy, come up with a message, come up with some sort of plan. Because, like, even if it's a shitty plan, at least it's a fucking plan. You can't just go out there and say, "Oh, well, we have no leverage." Democrats should just play dead and just let the Republicans do their thing, and show everybody just how bad they are. It's like, at the very least, your plan should be, if you're the Democratic Party, go over every single thing that the Republican Party is doing, not just in Congress, but with Trump in the White House and the executive orders as well, and like, relay it to the people, the impact it's going to have on them. Like, oh, are you a Republican voter? Well, did you vote for this? Did you vote for this to get rid of? Like, this is affecting countless jobs. This is just
Hmm.
chaos right now. Like, how can you be okay with this? We need someone
Yep.
that's going to bring stability at the very least. And that's a really shitty thing, because it's just replaying 2020. Because after the pandemic, it's just, everybody was just like, anybody but Trump. Like, this was botched. We should have someone in there to bring some sort of
Yeah.
stability and an
Who
actual,
knows
like,
what it would have been like without COVID? Who knows?
oh my god, yeah, yeah. I mean, it would have been, yeah. I don't think Biden would have won as easily, if it had, if COVID hadn't happened. But then we did have, like, the new civil rights, like, uprising, in
Yeah,
the summer of 2020, which probably would have definitely played into the hands of Democrats, just because of how global of a thing that was, how big of a
sure.
response it was. But um another thing that probably could have happened is Trump's economy was starting to deteriorate, even without the quick flash crash, I guess you could say, of COVID. So
Hmm.
maybe more that would have shown, like, cracks in the foundation if COVID hadn't happened. Like, because he going into Trump's first term, the economy was really strong. Like, we have finally, like, gotten, like, almost fully recovered from the
Since
recession, and we were
2008. Yeah.
growing
Hmm.
rapidly. Yeah. And it took a minute, but, like, coming out of Obama's second term, the economy was actually pretty damn good. And it wasn't until you started seeing cracks in 2019 and early 2020, through um, Trump's economic policies finally beginning to take place. but all that I mean, we'll never know, obviously, like to what extent that would have shown and how much of a hand it would have played into voters' decision come election day that year. Um, but like with what's happening right now, and because Biden was recovering from the COVID crash, and because there hasn't been enough time in recovery from that little quick recession that we did have in 2020. I guess we had one like a short, really short one in 2022 as well. I think it's September or something like that. We haven't the economy is not strong enough to handle the policies that the Trump administration is trying to push through right now. The economic policies, like especially with how big and bold they are and detrimental, the economy is not like clearly it's not reacting well. Like the stocks have been tanking. I think yesterday, excuse me, was the single worst day since September of 2022 with how much stocks fell and whatnot. So
Wow.
it's just a mess. But I mean, I wouldn't expect any less, to be honest. So yeah, Democrats
Yeah,
get a message.
I was doing some research the other day, and did you know that the top 10% of households in the U.S. that own publicly traded stock own 93% of publicly traded stock?
That's right. Yeah, I think we've talked about that before. The fact that it's so centralized, and I guess you can say it's like people are mostly just unaware and like don't exactly know much about trading and buying stock and whatnot. And they're just focused
Well, they
on
don't have the money,
their own.
dude. People are living
That too.
paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, that
People are
as
living
well.
paycheck to paycheck. Like, you
Yeah,
gotta, like, we keep talking about the working class in elections. It's like, what about the working poor? Why
yeah,
the hell are they not, like, if you want to get rid of the bottom rung of society, like, you got to lift them up
yes,
and you got
no,
to
of
give them
course.
basic services. Do
Yeah,
you know much about FDR's Second Bill of Rights?
a little bit. Yeah, it never came to be because he ended up dying in
Dying.
office. But yeah, that. Well, yeah, let's resurrect that for crying out loud.
I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious play. I'm surprised no one's doing it.
Right.
It's the right to a job, right to a basic wage, right to for farmers, businessmen, um, fair competition in business, decent home for a family, medical care, you know, adequate protection from the economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, and then the right to education. I mean, it's everything. It is the progressive agenda.
Yeah.
So I lay claim to that idea. Nobody take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the um I think anybody with like a progressive platform that's going for any position in office should at least make mention or acknowledge the Second Bill of Rights.
Yeah, why not? I
Yeah,
mean, it seems like a pretty amazing offering, and I think
yeah,
the the country needs to just get back to basics and fundamentals of the relationship between government and the citizen,
yeah.
and it needs to get over this idea that tax cuts and deregulation are like a natural part of managing a society. People get into labels, isms, right?
Yeah.
Capitalism. I say conservative capitalism. It really is neoliberalism,
Hmm.
um, all through and through, both on the right and the left. But
Yeah.
it's just more extreme and obvious on the right, where it's just a different form of conservatism.
No, of
Um,
course.
but yeah, we're not going to get anywhere until we get the conservatives out of the room. As they say in business, you want to get a deal done, get the lawyers out of the room. Well, in
Yeah.
politics, the answer to a better decision making apparatus is getting the conservatives out of the room. And it's going to take someone with a big personality to do it. It's going to take
Right.
someone with a big personality to do it and can speak with credibility about how to handle MAGA because MAGA needs handling. This is out of control. Still, so many people have blind faith in him. I don't know what's his
Yeah.
latest popularity numbers.
They've been
Um,
going down like slowly but surely. That's for damn sure. Be worth to pull it up. Not to mention all the little tidbits surrounding his agenda and whatnot so far.
okay, 46% since he took office in his second term. His first term overall average was a 41% approval rating. During
Right.
both terms, his lowest to highest approval ratings have ranged between 34 and 49. He's never been over 50%.
Right.
So if you
Yeah.
get him down to a third, there it is, that third number, 34%, might as well be 33.3. That's what I'm talking about. That's MAGA, is one
Yeah.
third of the public.
Yeah. It's just like remarkable how his approval ratings are this low and have consistently been this low. Yet him and all his sycophants are like Trump has. He has a mandate, and they're arrogant enough to say that like he deserves to be on like on physical currency, like what, like a $500 bill, $100 bill. I have no idea. Like it, like when he's not even that. He doesn't deserve it. Like like how they like
He's not even basically popular. He's not even close to as
no.
popular as Reagan was. Reagan was insanely
Yeah,
popular.
any other president for that matter. Honestly, like even Gerald Ford, like within his first couple months of being president, had a much higher approval rating than Donald Trump does right now.
I think it's more of a statement about the condition of our media and how our media has
Yeah,
flip-flopped. That's the realignment. It's not a realignment politically, it's a realignment with media, where media used to be a public good. And part of the assumption of media in the 80s and 90s was capitalism is good.
yeah,
Gordon Gekko, right? Greed is good. Like
hmm,
that's the self-interest that motivates us all to perform and compete. That's the
yeah,
engine of our society. And for people who
yeah,
don't like competition, that sucks. That sucks. That's why I think, you know, I'm
yeah,
like I think I've said this before, like I'm all about diversity. Um I don't care what you look like or where you come from so much as I care about your skills, talent, and passion.
right,
And um if I were to see, I want to see someone step up with a progressive message that has the skills, talent, and passion of a Bernie Sanders.
yeah,
I think it's that somebody can just pick up that fucking torch and more than one. Like, what am I talking
yeah.
about, right? Like, it's got to be a network of people.
Of course, of
It's
course.
got to be, I mean, the left needs stars, right?
Yeah,
Like, the left
yeah,
needs fucking names. And
yeah,
the progressive left is just a different cat, man. The progressive millennial, younger progressive, like it's just a more empathetic person. I think it has a lot to do with us living through like 9/11 and the Bush years,
yeah.
and just that fucking hangover, remembering 2008 so well, and being like the country all just being like, what the hell were we thinking with this guy,
God.
re-electing this guy?
No kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's also like there's so many holdovers from. I mean, it goes for both sides, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. They're just so held over from the ideologies that were rampant in the 80s and the 90s. And a lot of those people in the Senate are still fucking there. Like they've been there since the 80s or the 90s, and a lot of them in the House as well. And it's these ideologies that protect capitalism. These neoliberal ideologies that American exceptionalism and
Right.
protecting.
Narcissism.
Yes, yeah, and like a lot of these people, especially on the right, that operate from the Ayn Rand playbook, like as you were talking about earlier. Um, Greed is good. that was a fundamental philosophy that Ayn Rand championed, and it's just like it's still there. It's still present. We gotta get the people that believe this out of there.
Yeah, I mean, Ayn Rand did a lot for legitimizing conservative capitalism. I mean,
Yeah,
and it was, she was um, a really negative force
Big
in the
time.
world of thought leadership.
No,
I
yeah,
mean, you just the good news is that there's 45 years now of failure
yeah,
from the White House and really the federal government as a whole. There has been 45 straight years of failure.
yeah.
Like the two major groups, conservatives and the neoliberal establishment of the DNC, those are the real power brokers. If you don't know that, and that's, maybe a good segue into our question is like, how many people do you think know the difference between neoliberalism and progressivism? Like,
Right.
what percentage of voters, what percentage of people? I mean, it's going to be more with voters than it is with people, but I would say, I mean, less than 20%, I would say. Less than 10% probably.
Yeah, yeah. Like not not every not every Republican voter, especially, is not going to be very in tune with the philosophies of the people that they fucking vote for.
No, they lump us all together. They think we're all like Chuck Schumer fans.
No, of course, fucking disgusting. I resent the fuck out of that. But like you have people like Ted Cruz that openly champion Iran, making saying, "Yeah, Ayn Rand, who died on welfare, did a really good job supporting conservative capitalism?" Question mark. And that's the hypocrisy of it. That's the thing. Like, she didn't practice what she preached, yet like so many conservative senators and uh, Congress people champion her work. Atlas Shrugged or the Fountainhead and whatnot. It's
But
yeah,
don't
it's
overcomplicate it. Like
yeah,
the
it's
at the
not
end of the
complicated at
day,
all.
all that conservative capitalist ideology is just a actually creative way of justifying individual greed
I
and justifying people not innately wanting more, but a handful of us, maybe a third or 20%, who knows, you're good, um, want a ton more than everybody else. And
I
we
get
have to all get out of the way and accommodate that ambition
I guess
and selfishness.
I there's been no audio from my end on my stream for the past entire stream, like for
Oh
20
no.
22 minutes. Yeah,
Oh
how
no.
fucking frustrating. I want to die.
Oh no, that's
It's-
okay. Well, hopefully they can go over and reset watching on here on my
right.
channel.
Yeah, God, that's so
Well,
fucking embarrassing, dude. Uh, God damn it. Oh my God. Okay, so what were we talking about? Let's just
Well,
pick up where we
just
left off.
roughly how many people do you think know the difference between on the left, I guess, because what you're saying is that there's no way in hell conservatives know the difference between neoliberal and progressive. Very few of them. Maybe
No.
like, 10% of them,
Yeah.
or less. And how many people on the left do you think, people who vote Democratic or would if it were more convenient to vote Democratic? Who do you think, at what percentage of them do you think would know the difference?
Yeah. I mean, they when it comes to voting generally, it's like a lot of it is definitely team mentality. Like, if you're interested enough in politics to actually register the vote and actually like make your voice known, then thank you, Tracy. Then it you can go one of like a handful of ways. Like you recognize that the Democratic Party is the only vehicle for actual like bold change and whatnot. But like they're not perfect, or you're just like you're a party loyalist. Like you understand how bad the opposition party is, and it's like you don't think much deeper than that. I think there are a lot of others, even on the Republican side, definitely, who don't think any deeper than "Go Red Team Go" or "Blue Team Bad." Um,
Mm-hmm.
like, because when you get into like a lot more of the ideological aspects of voting, usually people, I mean, that's where a lot of independents come in, because it's like I don't want to be associated with parties that believe these things. Not to mention, you're basically there are a lot of people like ourselves included that are outside the Overton window that, excuse me, that want to be that want these parties to represent ideology that's more akin to them. And the thing is, I think the general American public is outside of the Overton window. It's just they're not being catered to rhetorically enough. There's not a narrative being crafted by the mainstream political media that is resonating with them like it should. Like you're not
Hmm.
you don't hear on mainstream media, especially about how bad homelessness is, like how
Hmm.
much like it's increased 18% in the past year, and like
Hmm.
if they do, they're not going to tell you why that is. They're not going to
Hmm.
tell you about like what the primary causes of homelessness is, and how if you dig deep enough, it's tied directly to capitalism. And of course, or healthcare, for example. You know, they're not because a lot of these programs are heavily funded by the industry or the healthcare insurance companies. They're not going to point to the root causes of why the healthcare system is so dysfunctional and why you're being screwed over, and like even though you pay a copay or a premium every single month, you're not going to get the best care even though like you shell out so much for it. And that's because like it is up to these companies, the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, to deny you care because it saves you money. It saves them money, and it's also up to them to push as many drugs upon you as possible, so that way your income your limited income that you get every month is going to these pills to make you feel better,
Hmm.
instead of you know uh, they want you to be a customer is the gist of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, that's actually kind of an argument against UBI right now, right?
Hmm.
Like, so if you just cut people $1,000 checks a month, that's just going to go in towards their rent,
Hmm.
right? In most cases of the working poor, they're not owning where they live.
Exactly. 100%.
So it's just
It
going
goes.
into their rent. So it just goes right into the system
Yes.
and it doesn't actually get to the root cause of that problem.
Right.
So I like the idea of UBI, but it's like step nine. Like
Hmm.
we got to get universal health care first.
Yeah.
We got to get raise the minimum wage. We got to I think I was kind of lukewarm about wiping the slate clean for student loan debt, but think of the benefit to the economy that would come from wiping all that debt clean
Yeah.
and how loyal and just the political pragmatism of it, where all those students would feel incredibly loyal for the next 20 years for wiping the slate clean,
Yeah.
get a nice fresh voter base.
Yeah.
But
If
it's
I.
just it's got to be big, man. Enough of this small time stuff. We got to rethink the. Trying to come
Mhm.
up with a way to simplify it. And I don't know. You let me know what you think of this, but it's like government is good. Counteracting Reagan government is the problem.
Mhm.
But government is good because people are good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my immediate reaction to hearing that is it sounds like when Hillary Clinton said America is great because America is good. It's just like, what the fuck does that even mean? What are you saying? But
But you got to counteract Reagan. Like the two
that's it.
figures, the
That's the
two the
thing.
two figures that I'm going to go out with unabashed passion is
Hmm.
are Reagan and Clinton. I
Yeah.
mean, W was not that long ago. People can go read up on W. I don't think
Hmm.
anybody disagrees that he was a failure of a president. It's
Of
amazing that he
course.
got two terms.
God.
Um,
Right. Yeah. I
so
mean,
it's
you blame
another
the
testament
Democrats
to the
for that.
Democratic Party. Yeah. And
No kidding. Yeah.
they're
Some things
the
never change.
loserdom of the Democratic Party strikes again.
Right. The more things change, the more they stay the same for real. Um, yeah. That message does need to be reignited. Honestly,
And
government is
that's what
good.
the
It's not the
beautiful thing
enemy.
is. I think the message is pretty simple. It's just no one's communicating it. Like
Hmm.
what is intellectually required in this moment is not so different from an alcoholic hitting rock bottom and having to get a sponsor and into the system of Alcoholics Anonymous. And
Yeah.
our alcohol is various forms of conservative ignorance.
Right.
And to a lesser extent, but also detrimental extent, neoliberal
Hmm.
ignorance and naivete about
Yeah.
capitalism being fair if it's just tax cuts and deregulation. And yeah, there's incremental stuff here and putting money into public works and whatnot. Biden's infrastructure, for
Hmm.
example, was respectable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still just incrementalism. We're not dealing with the root problems of this stuff.
No.
Like Biden could have, you know, cleared out student loan debt as like
No.
a
That's
hail
that.
mary, as like
That.
a hail mary to
Yeah.
to help
That's
Kamala.
something. I think because we brought it up earlier, and that's something I think could really go a long way. I forget who um is championing that right now. It might be Tim Walz. I need to catch up on excuse me, some political videos and whatnot and see exactly what he's been up to. But if it's not him, it's someone else. And like championing debt relief could definitely go a long way, especially with how successful Tim Walz was with it in
Yeah.
Minnesota as governor, for sure.
Hmm.
Honestly, like, oh well, you muted. Yes, Megan says appreciate the mentions of neolib. Um, he had it stopped twice by the courts. How
I
could he
think
pull that?
progressivism's Oh, sorry. You got a good one.
Um, are you talking about Tim Walz having the court stop that? I thought it was successful. I thought it went all the way through. Um, but the basic idea of it is over time, like as debt accumulates, it depending on where it gets held, it can just be bought up again on the cheap because like not everybody wants to be holding on to debt like wherever like you're lending and whatnot. And I think Tim Waltz, if I'm not mistaken, used the surplus that he had for the state of Minnesota to buy up outstanding medical debt. If I'm not mistaken. Oh,
Yeah.
Megan's talking. Okay, Megan that says Biden's student debt relief stopped by the courts. That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah, by
that's that's what
Cruz.
happened. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So Tracy Eva says building more affordable homes and social housing on a massive scale. Yeah.
that'd be
I
great.
mean, China built
Fantastic.
cities. China
Yeah,
built new cities for their people,
entirely new
because
cities.
that's
Yeah,
what their population growth required.
yeah,
And now their population growth is like evening out, not becoming is not as much of an issue
of
as it
course.
was.
Yeah, yeah, and
But that also has problems when when your population doesn't grow generation from generation. That creates problems like with like Social Security, for example, would be problematic because you don't have as many people paying into it year to year. But
right.
that's a little technical.
Yeah, yeah.
China. I love how people think China is a communist nation.
No kidding. It's basically a totalitarian state. They utilize capitalism as a means to an end. But
Yeah.
like even though their society is like highly socialized, like there's no doubt about that. But it's not very communist at all, actually.
No, there's a
Uh,
huge aristocracy and they run everything. It's almost like an oligarchy in a weird way.
no,
Um,
it essentially is, even though it's like there's a central figure behind it all. Yeah, I mean not too dissimilar from Russia, honestly.
yeah. Yeah. Tracy Eva says the climate crisis needs to be central to your campaign.
Bingo. Completely agree.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that much is. I think that's going to be only. The Gen Z cares about it. They're going to be around for it, for the
Right.
consequences.
Yeah.
So it'll be that's the big question for me is will Gen Z be more politically active than any young generation since the '60s? I think there's a good chance.
Yeah. I mean I would hope so. I mean um we definitely need a whole hell of a lot of energy because there's essentially fucking none right now, and it is like the silence is kind of deafening. Um, China's publicly owned capitalism, which is socialist, but then no voting. I mean, yeah, they're gonna vote for. I mean, like I think Xi Jinping is like the only candidate that ever runs, but if it's not, then it's like a guy that he picks. I'm not exactly sure. Straight up feudalist, 100%. You get your rations and do your work. Here's some suicide nets. Yep, that's exactly what Silicon Valley wants. It's exactly what those fucking weirdo tech freak billionaires want. It's
Yeah, somebody's
fucking.
got to take them on.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, there you go, Democrats. Fucking go after these fucking freaks that want like to fucking devalue the dollar, crash the market, buy up everything, and like create these little network tech feudal states where people are essentially owned by corporations. Go after that fucking weird ass shit.
Yeah,
Can
I
we
think
make
that would work.
can we make robot bees? Yes or no? I have no fucking idea, Megan. I have no idea. Yeah, I just um re-promoted since fucking audio was out. Because I noticed like people were coming in and out, but they would just immediately leave. It's like, damn guys, the least you could have told me was that like I didn't have any audio at my end, but whatever.
Yeah, sorry about
Um,
that, man. That sucks when that happens.
yeah, it's whatever, honestly. Um, what have you been up to lately? You said that you were doing like some sort of networking thing recently.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of networking across the state, having fun with the Democratic Socialists of America chapter
Oh
here,
boy,
and yeah, it's a cool institution. Um, a lot of good people. I wish
yeah,
they had more power. It's kind of they need more of a voice, and I think could be a really valuable resource
of
if
course,
they had a little stronger connections to each other. The chapters are a little bit siloed, but it's good people.
right.
It's really good people. Smart.
That's good.
Everyone's. It's like too smart for their own good, man. It's like when you're really matter of fact about all this stuff, it's you kind of accept it, and there's kind of an acceptance that comes from you know being a progressive because they haven't had their chance. You know,
Yeah.
um, and I think there's a little bit of a defeatism there. I don't know.
I mean, sure. I think the midterms are really going to what determines a whole hell of a lot of our political future in the United States. It just couldn't get here quick enough. Like I felt like 3 years have gone by in the past 2 months. It's absolutely insane. Like, w- and there's really not many metrics right now to just like determine where we are politically, ideology, or even fucking mentally when it comes to not just Gen Z and how they look at the future of the country, but the progressive left as well. Like a lot of them are still melting down, screaming with their heads off, like like their heads on fire and shit, which is completely like valid given what's been going on, but
Yeah,
it, it's just there's just no direction at all, and that's like the
there's
most
nothing encouraging about this situation if you're
no,
on the left. There's
not at
nothing
fucking
encouraging.
all. And so
Like
it's like
maybe a year from now, if we've weathered the storm as a country, if we still have a country,
Uh,
then people will have optimism about whoever might be running in their local primaries. But it's going to be a little while. It's going to be a little while, before we start to really see a new generation of politicians in the Democratic Party, because I believe that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a new generation to take over the party and really reorganize the strategic plan for the party for the next, not the next 4 to 8 years, but the next 20 years, you know?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's easy to get locked into defeatism given how the party that is supposed to be in opposition to the party in power is showing no fight at
yeah,
all and are literally actively openly saying play dead and we have no plan, we have no leverage. So it's just like and these are all and these are the dinosaurs. These are the people that they're just are um buttressed by the fucking party elitists, you know? Like who the fuck actually likes Hakeem Jeffries? Who the fuck actually sees him as a leader? Why
nobody.
why is this our fucking current situation, you know? It's like I went to a show last night and it was me and my buddy and we were driving on the way up there and he is a big time libertarian, like small government and you know don't tread on me, one of those kind of guys. But he even gets like what the Republicans are doing right now is fucking insane. Like he is a big like Ukraine supporter. It's like fuck what Russia's doing. This is complete and total bullshit. Like we're basically betraying them, and like Trump is lying. All this shit, and not to mention the rights that various people are starting to get taken away, or at the very least attacked right now. Even he sees like between the current two party duopoly, there's just it's just hopeless because he's always been like a libertarian party guy and things like if they had their shot, if they had like their heyday, like they might actually be able to like make a difference. It's just like what's really frustrating about third parties in general is like you would need to get rid of first past the post voting and implement at the very least ranked choice voting. That way, like these other parties can not only get like federal funding, they would actually have a chance to gain seats, especially at the federal level. But there's just no system, no systemic organization or structure to any of it. So it's just that way by design. It's like the system is currently fucking designed to frustrate everybody not a part of it or not
Hmm.
going along to get along. It's yeah, it's just fucking it's endless.
Will do, Tracy. Um, yeah, man, I'm pretty depressed about things in general. I have a weird sense of, you know, acceptance about where, we're just going to try to get through these next couple of years and hopefully we're okay on the other side of it, you know, because the country's going to be a really different place 2
Right.
years from now.
You're saying Megan like AOC didn't even sign on the letter. Like that's actually really surprising because I know which letter you're talking about. The one that was signed by like Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, Al Green, Rashida Tlaib to immediately release the guy from Colombia because he was literally just fucking kidnapped by ICE and like he has a green card, he has a visa, and like they basically told him like no you don't. And so like AOC's
Wow.
like if AOC's like well if they can do this to this guy, they can do this to anybody. They can make an example out of fucking anybody, and
Right.
that's what's most fucking scary about this shit. Um, yeah, a letter on the Israel thing. Like 13 is yeah the Columbia guy. Yeah. Um, yes, Meg. Yep, I'm catching up. I'm catching up. And now Rubio is saying the ball is in Russia's court now. Shit is about to get serious. Megan here is referring to um I guess Ukraine and U.S. have agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, and yeah, she's saying meeting today in Saudi. I think you mean. Do you mean Saudi Arabia? Because that would make more sense. Um, Russia has yet to sign on to this deal, like agree for it to go forward. I guess the United States and Ukraine actually met and are they went they're going through with an actual like 30-day ceasefire proposal. So yeah, it really does depend on what Russia does right now. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. Let's see. They revoked it, but they're looking at connections to terrorist orgs, which totally can be used against American citizens under Patriot. Yep. Yep. Um, yeah, they're claiming that this Colombia guy is tied to terrorist organizations. So we'll see how this fucking plays out. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most people in America think is about foreign policy these days. Ever since the end of the Cold War,
Mm,
well, there was the war on terror, obviously, so
mhm.
that influenced things. But
Right.
really faded since the end of the Cold War. This idea of like foreign policy, like we just don't care. It's just like we got two oceans protecting us, and we just think we're
Yeah.
invincible and no one can touch us.
Right.
And that's why
Yeah.
I appreciated Zelensky's balls at the meeting. He's like, it's going to affect you at some point. Like, this is what's going on in Ukraine is going to affect you at some point.
Yes.
And it was, not surprising the way he was treated. But I'm glad to hear they might get a 30-day break
Yeah.
for, recouping. But I mean, at the end of the day, is Ukraine willing to part with any of its land? Like, they don't seem like the types of people that would be willing to accept giving up any of their land. They already lost Crimea like back in 2013 or whatever it was.
Yeah. I think. I mean, if anything, because there's been like over a decade plus of Russian interference in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, I believe, are what they're called. That like I don't know if there would actually be any recovery of that region to Ukraine, because like the idea is that region um, has been seeking independence, but even
Hmm.
that is that is worth questioning because like what exactly is the legitimacy of those claims because of the massive Russian interference. So I think at the very least, with multiple powers involved, that region can opt for like complete and total independence from both Ukraine and Russia.
Hmm.
But it just depends on like how Putin sees it and how Zelensky sees it. Not to mention like if anything, like the people in this region should be the ones to like dictate their own their own borders, so to speak. If it is, if it's a serious thing, especially like because if you if I was Ukraine, I would take a look at it and I'd be like, well, if I can't have it, you can't have it either. Let's like actually make it an independent state. Now, of course, nations don't have friends; they have interests. They don't like so more than likely like they're going to be aligned with Russia. Like this independent region, like if it's been interfered with for so long, the Donbass would be more friendly to Russia and Russian allies, and so down the line, that's probably just going to cause more fuel for the fire when it comes to the tensions between the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. So it's a very complex issue. There's no telling how it's actually going to play out. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
think Russia's going to probably end up with some land, and it'll be peace, and maybe it'll be a year from
maybe,
now,
yeah,
maybe it'll be 2 or 3 years from now. But I think the most likely thing is Ukraine will have to give up some land,
yeah.
and then Putin will call the dogs off at least for a little while, and then he'll find an excuse to get into war with somebody else,
No,
because that's what Russia thinks that they need to do to make a point.
exactly. According to Megan, Donbass was Welsh. It was Welsh for real.
Really? That's hard to believe.
That is hard to believe. Voted to be independent, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I remember we talked about that, and Ukraine said the elections were rigged by radicals, and there is some merit to the claim that those elections were rigged. On one of my previous streams, we actually dived deep a little bit into it regarding uh, the voting process and like how it actually became independent, and not to mention the Minsk agreements as well. There's a whole lot that you can find out on Wikipedia when it's all sourced and whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Megan also makes a fantastic point, and I completely agree with her from a little bit earlier. Dems should call for abolishing the Patriot Act and related internal spying allowances. I could
Yeah,
not agree more. Honestly,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, given tough luck, honestly, because I wouldn't be surprised within this Trump term that the Patriot Act gets expanded drastically, especially with the announcement of hundreds of billions being funded over time into Larry Ellison's pet AI infrastructure
Yeah,
project and whatnot.
scary.
And the fact that they want to utilize said projects and said infrastructure for a mass surveillance system powered entirely by AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you at on that, Trump voters? Where are you at on that, Infowars?
Tracy Googled Donetsk, the most important city in the region today, was founded in 1869 by Welsh businessman John Hughes on
Really?
the site of the old Zaporizhian Cossack town of Alexandrivka.
Damn. Okay. Fucking you nailed it, Megan. Good job.
No, it's Tracy.
Well,
It's Tracy.
well, so like Megan was right
Oh,
the first
she was
time.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So she, yeah. British Empire fuckers. Yeah, that sounds about right because fucking Brits throughout fucking the centuries just stuck their dick everywhere.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
got into it real bad, didn't they? They got
No,
into it
of
real
course,
bad.
of course.
Um,
Like I think India is like the only actual country that managed to fucking like
yeah, because of
wiggle themselves out.
Mountbatten,
Yeah. They
the,
just wriggle themselves out of
the man who gave away India.
yeah.
Yeah, that was well. So yeah, so they got off the hook a little bit because they gave away India, and
Hmm.
then they were huge when it came to beating back Nazi Germany in World War
Yeah,
II.
of
You know,
course.
they were tough as shit, and
Yeah,
they survived, and they didn't contribute as many bodies as the Soviets did, but
right. And
it's
I'll
it's still
I'll
significant.
give Churchill so much credit for that too. Like, because he,
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of lefties have like issues with Churchill, but I'm still a huge fan. I mean, one of the
Mhm.
biggest balls moments he was when the French were invaded. He went in and sunk all the warships in the
Yeah,
French Navy. And I
he
was like,
he
wow,
so like when France was invaded by Germany, he sank the French navy.
yes,
I didn't know that.
So that the Germans couldn't get their hands on it.
Oh, okay, for sure. Yeah, that checks out. Megan says, "I am off and right." I need to get that whiteboard. I don't know why I still haven't got that whiteboard. I keep on talking about it, but just add a couple tallies to that. Um, anyway, let's move on.
Yeah,
I won't explain any further than that. Yeah, no. Churchill was right about a handful of things for sure. He had a different. He definitely had a really particular.
But do you know why he became so popular in Parliament when Hitler became a thing? Like after Neville Chamberlain blew it, and then, do you remember why he became a big deal in Parliament? It's not complicated. It's because he was an expert on Germany. He knew Germany better than anybody in Parliament. He was paying attention to Hitler before Hitler was a thing. And
Right.
so they needed a guy with this special, like, a particular set of skills, like they say in Taken. Can you hear my dogs, by the way?
A little bit.
Oh, okay, because they're howling, but I don't know how much they're showing up.
That's fine.
Yeah, so, Churchill was a specific type of political athlete. He was a wartime prime minister. He wasn't, going to divvy out like amazing new social programs and,
Yeah.
revolutionize the way that the country did political business. He came from an aristocratic family. Like,
Right.
it's
No, of
different
course.
there. It was different there.
Yeah.
Like, it's different. It's just British. Like, it's not, yeah, we're their ancestors. They are ancestors in a lot of ways culturally, but we're still really different. Really different.
Right.
That's Tracy. Tracy's from Britain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Megan wants to see the dogs.
She wants to see the dogs? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get one in here. Come here.
Okay.
Come here.
Yeah. Churchill's definitely a very interesting historical figure. He wasn't close to a communist, but definitely like despised the fascists. The puppers. Aw.
Relax. Relax.
Oh.
Good camera.
Hello. Looky there. Hi. What a cutie. You're a
This is Riker.
star. Who's that?
This is Riker.
Riker.
Yep, after the Star Trek character.
Australian Shepherd.
Australian Shepherd, yep.
Oh.
Come here, baby. Come here, baby. Shepherd. Here.
Oh. You're getting your wish, Megan. Oh, another Australian Shepherd. Okay.
And this is Skipper Dipper.
Oh, I used to dog sit a shepherd that looked exactly like that one. His name was Cowboy. Yeah, Australian Shepherds, really, really good dogs.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're lucky.
Yeah, yeah, good dogs for sure. Yeah, I every now and then, I haven't in a long time, but I would dog sit for an ex-girlfriend of my dad's, because I was just so close to the dogs as well, and she trusted me to dog sit for them when she would go out of town. And she has a blue nose pit bull terrier and a dachshund terrier named Pippi and Tig, respectively. Tig, named after the character from Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I need to rewatch that show. Good show.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I've heard it's good though.
Yeah, for real. Do you do the slaloms? What's that mean, Megan? What is that? Megan also says both have beautiful patterns. Yeah, very pretty dogs.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're really lucky. We're not having kids, so we decided to go with we always dreamed of having those kinds of dogs. So we're lucky that they turned out to have such great personalities.
All right.
But I probably, yeah, I don't know if I should show them too much. I'm not going to show them on here too much. I worry about them, you like your kids.
No, right. Yes, especially, I mean, getting more into politics and, making a name for yourself. Like, not to get all like conspiratorial and whatnot, but like people see, your offspring and like your family as leverage and whatnot, especially like if you're getting too deep into dangerous political territory and whatnot.
Yep.
Like,
no, it's gonna be a crazy time.
Like
it's
the polls,
crazy time.
You do a zigzag thing. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, Megan. Yeah, Megan wants children.
Oh Good luck.
Hmm.
Start saving for college.
Right, right. I mean, let's start saving for children in general. um, yeah. So, what what is it about the what do you think had a bigger impact, the Fairness Doctrine or the Telecom Act when those got done away with?
I think the Telecom Act was the bigger mistake. The Fairness
Yeah.
Doctrine, you can argue intellectually, was not valid because it said that you had to have both sides of the argument. Well, that implies that there's only two sides to every argument. And one of the value propositions of our show is that there's more than two sides to every argument. There's a third side, there's a fifth side, it keeps going.
Right.
Um, so with, you know, the Fairness Doctrine, it kind of just got rid of that requirement. But that didn't lead to like
Mm.
CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News becoming what they are today. Like that really happened after the Telecom Act,
Right.
and there was a lot of consolidation within media. Um, Clear Channel and Sinclair swallowed up a bunch of radio stations and local TV stations,
Yeah.
and it got pretty sketchy with how much power has been consolidated. And that's why, someone's got to step up and say, we got to Teddy Roosevelt this bitch. It's not supposed to be this much consolidated power.
No
We need to
kidding.
break shit up. We
No.
need to break
Yeah.
shit up.
I think progressives should definitely reintroduce both of those because, like, with media and the coverage of issues today, not having multiple perspectives on any given issue is a gigantic problem because most of the time you just get one, like, especially on the right. Like,
Right.
on MSNBC and especially CNN, they're fucking especially guilty of this. You'll get two perspectives that are well within the Overton window, and the way it's covered, excuse me, it's it's covered as if there's an overarching neutrality bias, like a net that just covers the whole discourse on any given topic. And so, like, there's like say for instance there's a topic that where there's like like clearly there's a side that is a lot more factual, a lot more grounded, a lot more based in reality, that is treated generally as if it is just as okay of a position to hold as the opposing view, which is not as based in fact, not as based in reality. And like there examples of this have popped up on left media, liberal mainstream corporate media to be exact, over the years, a handful of times, and in really disgusting ways. So I think, because I love to do like a deep dive on like all these great things that were in place for a reason, just being stripped away by whether it was Reagan or especially Bill Clinton, and how bringing those back today would make a whole hell of a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because ultimately it's about informing the public. Like, wouldn't you rather, if you want to make America great again, why don't we bring these things back? Why don't we outlaw fucking stock buybacks again? Fucking another thing that Reagan got rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw, I
Uh,
saw, I saw Megan, the reference for dog salon. She's talking about like the poles that you stick in the ground, and the dogs like go like zigzag back and forth with them and whatnot.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I see, like the for like playtime or at dog parks and shit. But yeah, like educating the public on these things that made America actually pretty good. I think could go a long way.
Well, I know we got literacy rates problems, man. We got a lot of
No, of
ignorance,
course,
and
of
people are so
course.
busy. A lot of people who are in that bottom 50% who own 2.5% of all wealth, that bottom 50% really doesn't have time They're just basically working to either stay out of debt or stay afloat while they're in debt. Like, it's just
Yeah.
brutal for the people who just don't have the time to research candidates and research, um, like that they should even vote twice in even years.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know that about the primary system. And
Right.
it's like someone needs to kind of come back and help us graduate high school and redo all the social studies and civics classes so that everyone can get on the same page with how the government works and its important and its role in our lives.
No kidding.
Um,
Yeah.
because it's important, man. And capitalism is on the decline and
Big
socialism is
time.
on the incline in terms of popularity. There's no
Yes.
doubt about that.
Of course.
So, and people say, oh, it's socialism. Well, Social Security is socialism.
Hmm.
Medicare and Medicaid is socialism. So,
It's like you
shut
just
the hell up
yeah,
because
you
those
just
are the most
ask people like,
popular platforms.
yeah,
Those,
it's like, do you not want more democratized say over the distribution of wealth and shit? Like, don't you want more democratized say over how companies are ran? Like, look at worker-owned co-ops.
right.
Like it these things have existed for a long time, and like to varying degrees of success, sure, but if done right, you can cut out like the one of the biggest expense for a lot of these corporations, which is bonuses to the board, the salary of the CEOs, and
Mhm.
distribute that amongst the actual workforce, and,
Yeah.
and not to mention, it's like, why should you, as a working class person, part of the proletariat, work tirelessly, like week after week, like longer and longer hours for no bump in pay, yet you're one of the most productive members of the company, and all like the bulk share of that value created by your labor goes straight to the owner. That's not exactly a fair system. Like, even if that owner was a big innovator, in some form or another, it's just like, why should they be milking you as an employee? Like, because
Capital.
it's not, yeah, it's just like
It's because
extracting
they
your wealth.
it's because of risk.
No, yeah.
The capitalist counter argument would be, well, that guy took the risk by investing his capital in that business, so he owns it.
Right. No, of course. Co-ops often fucked by banks for no reason. God, I wonder why. It's like the system's fucking rigged against collective ownership and shit. We should deregulate to allow more unionizing and cooperatives. It depends
Yes.
on it depends on how what you deregulate specifically, but I completely agree. But right now, it's with this administration, they're cracking down on unionizing, and they're making it so that the companies that do union bust aren't going to see as many repercussions for it, or it's going to make like it's just going to make it harder for retribution, I guess you could say. Uh, Megan also says, not sure if it was a Supreme Court ruling about not working for competitors, agreements being invalid. Kind of recent, yeah. Like for people who work in like a particular field, but can't go to a different company in that same field because of like company secrets or some shit like that. Um, because that's definitely a thing. Like especially in the tech field, employees that sign non-disclosure agreements,
Hmm.
and and yet they still go to work for other companies and whatnot, and like that's how like secrets get spilled. Like there's a whole bunch of drama behind that, but I'm not exactly sure on the details. Oh yeah, at your work, because Megan works for I guess you could say a weapons manufacturer, like a contracting
Oh, that's
place.
wonderful.
No, of course, right? Yeah, works out of the office
Yes.
for someone who has a contract with some big name corporations that themselves are contracted with the military and whatnot.
Well, imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Like
Subcontract.
it's gonna take like the date that I keep thinking about is 2050. Like where's this
Mhm.
country gonna be in 2050? Like
Right.
when the Gen Zers are our age, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
I
Completely
am
agree.
Tracy Ava says I am watching a lot of Richard D. Wolf at the moment on YouTube. He is also big on worker co-ops.
I
Yeah.
like Richard Wolff a lot. I think he could be a little bit sensationalist, but his knowledge of capitalism is pretty much indispensable. Like I have a
Mm-hmm.
big amount of respect for him. He's very informative. Megan says, yeah, subcontractor of a contractor, and they also work in health stuff like stuff for cancer, radiation therapy. That's really good. That's good as well.
Um. Oh man, I don't know how much longer I can go.
Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you, dude. Um, yeah, the future of the DNC needs you
I
know
mean, we end up talking about that
resurrected.
goddamn party like every time
Of course.
conservatism is what it is. Like it's proven what its legislative goals are
Yeah.
since 1980, and there's no mystery about it.
Yeah,
Whereas the
there's no
Democratic Party keeps kind of suggesting that they might be a better version of itself this time around,
yeah,
and they never are.
that's the thing, and we talked about it in the previous stream as well. There's nowhere else for conservatism to go. Like it's not a useful ideology anymore. Like
No.
there it's served its purpose. It has no place in our current society. So the only way for conservatism to go is further to the right.
Yeah.
So you get more and more fascists, more and more out
Yep.
and out like extremists within the Republican Party. And
Yeah.
the rhetoric gets a lot more fascistic as well. Like because like and with that like more nationalism, more e- exceptionalism, traditionalism for just for the sake of it, just to out extreme themselves. Whereas
Various
like
forms of the three big sins, which is narcissism, ignorance, and hypocrisy.
yeah,
Those are the America's three big sins, as far as I can tell.
right, right, yeah. I mean, whereas on the Democratic side, like the sky's the fucking limit. They just won't like take any opportunity to do so because they'll be fucking seen as too radical, like too communist, too socialist. It's just like who gives a fuck? You're helping people. It's like what I think it was like what was it? Truman? It might have been Truman. It might have been Truman that said like well, it seems like they just want to label anything that actually helps a lot of people as socialists,
Yep.
yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, it's
Rachel
like
Horning making a good point here. Soviet project wasn't communism, but state capitalism. Yeah,
yeah, more or less.
that's what I've heard, that's what I've heard too.
Yeah,
I don't
I mean,
pretend to have studied the Soviet Union enough, but
I mean that's the thing though. Like communism has never like actually worked in practice. Like as a leftist, I can fucking admit that. You know,
yeah,
like there's a lot of fucking um right wingers that want to point to this country and that country as you know failures of communism, but it's like they were never communists to begin with. And then there are some like other right wingers that are kind of like in the same vein that are like, oh, these are all communist countries because I don't know, there's just like just too left wing for me to comprehend. It's just like no, technically they're not. you know,
hmm
uh, the maturation of Marx's vision was co-ops, essentially. Yes, yes, he did emphasize that a lot more than
yeah. The
people give him
workers
credit
owning
for.
the means of production.
Yeah, and then I think Lenin even took that even further. Um, but yeah, no, like it just the ideological illiteracy on the right, whereas it's like you do understand like where unions go, labor goes in general, you know, the working class goes because like the stronger and the better and bigger that unions are, the more powerful their collective bargaining is, and if they're getting better deals on their union contracts and whatnot, industries that don't have unions have to follow suit in order to compete. So that means like
Right.
even industries that aren't unionized can get better deals with their employees as well, like offer better salaries, better benefits and shit. And it's because of the work that unions do.
Hmm.
But like, I
They just
wish I
have
could.
that legacy of they just had that legacy of corruption. Unfortunately, unions in America means
Oh, sure,
historically has a lot of corruption issues. But
right. I'm watching
that's
The
sort of
Sopranos.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like I, I mean, there's definitely always room for improvement here and there. One thing I am kind of looking forward to is we'll read this first. Basically, the ownership of the means was simply transferred from private ownership to state ownership, and division was unrealizable until the workplace is democratized. Yes, yeah, because otherwise it's just centralized power. They put on the facade of doing everything for the worker and empowering the worker and whatnot, whereas living conditions just deteriorate while the power of the state increases.
mhm.
It's like one side of the same coin. It's like fascists kind of do the exact same thing, except they're a lot less friendly to the worker. Um, of course, I digress. Like it goes a whole lot deeper than that. But I forget what I was going to say before that. But
If I end, can you keep going?
maybe I got nothing really much else to touch on.
Okay.
Yeah, Megan says Soviets went for worker owned first, less capitalist than Mao. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, conservatism is modernizing faster than liberalism. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like all the left and all Democrats have to do is stop being so goddamn afraid of being labeled as radicals or communists and whatnot, and just frame their advocacy in a way that like comes off as centrist. Be the moderate, but also government is good. like stop like
Yeah,
emphasizing.
counterattack. Go after their archetypes. Go after
Yeah,
their legacy names and historical figures that, you know, epitomize their ideology.
yeah,
But anyway, man, I'm gonna run.
for sure.
I'm just having a
Oh
long day.
no,
I
yeah,
appreciate
I
appreciate
feel
it
it.
though.
Yeah, yeah. No, I stayed out late last night after I went to a kick-ass hardcore show up near Sacramento. I
Nice,
went to a bar afterwards and stayed out to like 1. So like
nice.
yeah, not not the smartest thing for a work night, but
Well, we'll get more. We'll have a much more fun stream next week at
for
the
sure.
same time.
Yeah,
Until then,
the
for
day
Stat
after.
Pat Stateless Patriot, I am Dieter McBusiness, reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely. Thank
See
you
you
for
guys the 18th.
watching.
Yeah, have a good night, guys.